Welcome everybody into today's session. So this is part 4 of the professional presentation that I have put together. Now, the professional presentation is something that helps agents to go through that entire process. So many times when I speak about a professional presentation, everybody jumps straight into a little handout or a little booklet, and that's what they want to give to their clients. And there's a lot more to it. That's why going through the professional presentation, I break it down into these little segments that really gets you to go, okay, there's a lot more to it. Else, it would just be called the presentation. So we're going to be adding the professional presentation, which takes it up a notch. And in part 4, this is the one that I actually love going through. It's the professional photography. So that is what we're going to be covering in today. And you're going to see there's a couple little tips and tricks that I will share with you to help you in your business in a variety of factors. So sit back and relax and let's get into today. So as I start every one of my sessions, how to get the most out of these particular sessions. And remember, it's not only for this particular session, but it's for future sessions that you're working on as well or joining into. And it's a simple acronym. It's the PCC. P is for participation. You see, what you need to do is you need to be immersed in the actual presentation as we're going through it. So cut out the distractions, put the social media to one side, the messages, the emails, any of that. Sit back, relax, and get engrossed into what's being presented on. Because just by watching and listening, you're going to take on about 40 to 50% of it. If you start taking down some notes, it'll actually push it up even higher. The second, the C, is curiosity. You see, you don't know what you don't know. And in this session, I'm going to teach you something that you didn't know. But if you've got any questions, remember, you can always put it into the actual comments, into the actual chat box, and I respond to every single one of those messages. So remember, always ask the question. And then finally, it's your commitment. Your commitment is so important when you're going forward. When you find that golden nugget, put it into your pocket and move forward with it. Don't just say, hey, it's going to be another bit of piece of paper pushed onto the side. Get that commitment going forward. It will definitely help you with your business. So let's get into professional presentation, which is today professional photography. Now, when I do these sessions, I always look at it and say, what tools can you take with you when you're going on a presentation? You see, the power of our word, of our speech, the way we say it is good. But when we can support it with selected tools, it just elevates it to another level. So there are 2 tools that I'm going to be sharing with you today. And these 2 tools are very straightforward and simple. The first is what I call the photo comparisons. And this is something where I will show you and how I actually put together my photo comparisons. They are so powerful, and I will share with you a funny way of getting a property upgraded without you saying to your client, "Oh, your kitchen looks old and dated." So I'm going to share that with you in a very simple way. And the second one is the tools to be your own photographer. Now, the reason why I say that is sometimes agents are running on a bit of a budget and they want to use their phones or they want to use their own cameras because they've invested in those cameras. They don't have that affordability to pay out for a professional photographer. Well, don't fall into the trap of just taking pictures and thinking that they're the greatest. I'll give you a couple of tips to go through and tools to help you so that you just understand the basics. And what it'll do is it'll take your pictures from good to great. So those are the 2 tools that I'm going to share with you today. And you're going to see how this is going to give you a huge impact with your listings. So the first tool we're going to talk about is the photo comparison. Now, photo comparisons, these are fantastic. You have them printed out in your A4, you have them laminated. You can either put them side by side, have them as separate pictures. I'm going to give you some examples now. But what it does is when you're presenting to your seller and you're adding in the value add that you use professional photos in your presentations. Now, just by saying those words sounds good, but your clients needs to see visuals. When they see visuals, it takes it up a notch. And that's exactly what I want to share with you when we start looking at these particular visuals. So, what I'm going to be sharing with is an actual listing that I had, and I sold it in a record time as well. And what I did with it, just taking you through this particular process. I had my professional photographer, who's an architectural photographer. He took the photos, and all I did was I stood next to him and I took the pictures as best as I could with my mobile phone. Now, there are a couple of photos that is staged, and I will explain each one of them as we start going through. So here's the very first photo of this particular property that I sold. Now, it's a fantastic picture. It tells you a story. It's got a nice little entrance. Stuart, stop there. It's not that appealing, but compare it to the exact same property that's done by a professional photographer. You can see when you look at those two pictures, immediately the professional picture gives you that inviting look to the actual property. It's bright, it's clean, the grass is green, the skies are blue. It actually makes it more welcoming. Now, when you present these two pictures and you say, well, I'm an agent that uses professional photography, this is the difference. It really gives a heightened impression. So I want to go a little bit further. I want to share the kitchen. Now, in this particular property, the kitchen is open plan and it feeds right into the actual dining room. So we took a picture at the other end of the dining room table and away we go. Now, if you look at it, this is a general picture that typically it's not staged, but this is a picture that I've seen so many times when it goes onto the internet. We take a picture and it's almost like there's too much work to clean it up. Well, we spent another 15 to 20 minutes. We polished it up a little bit by removing, and that was the end result. So, yes, with a professional camera, gives you a better result. But if you look at the counters, if you look at the chairs, they've been removed. We staged it. That was about between the first photo and the second photo is only about 15 minutes. And that was cleaning up the counters and putting everything together. So professional photography is not only about taking a good picture, it's also about taking a good staged picture. So you're making sure that you're taking that picture and everything's in place. Now, this is where I want to share with you a great, great way of saying to a client, you know what, your kitchen is dated. And this is something that you can actually do. You can actually go onto the internet, look for iStock images or any of the images like that, and you can then take a picture that or download and have it printed of a kitchen that looks a little bit dated and old, steel cabinetry inside and things of that nature. And then take a picture and download it of one that's ultra modern and luxury. Now, when you're walking through a house and you notice a bathroom's dated, lounges dated, kitchen's dated, you don't really want to say to your client directly, oh, by the way, your house is dated and we're going to have to discount it by X% before we can even get a buyer. That seller is going to be pushing you out that front door so quickly. So, how do you do it in the most respectful manner that actually gets your seller to say, oh, my house is dated. What can I do? Well, this is how you do it. Photo comparisons. You sit down and you say, hey, Mr. Seller, let's have a look at properties that are similar to yourself. And you can actually have maybe even 4 or 5 pictures of a kitchen, for argument's sake. You put them in front of him and you say, which of these pictures is similar to your kitchen? And they will look at the pictures that are kind of similar and you'll see them. Then you pull out this ultra luxury modern and say, what do you think of this kitchen? And you just give a bit of a pause. And they'll look at it and they'll say, wow, that's ultra modern. It looks fantastic. And then you give another little pause and watch the little cogs in their head start turning. Because suddenly they look at it and they go, okay, that modern kitchen looks great. And then you end with this little thing. So if you were to walk into a property, which kitchen would you choose? And you will find that they're going to go for that ultra modern or the clean looked type of kitchen. And then it starts turning in their head. Wait a minute. If I'm looking at ultra modern, it means the buyers are going to be doing the same. What can I do with my kitchen? So photo comparisons are a great way of educating your client on what's dated and what's modern, showing. Remember, they've been living in that property for X amount of years and it's just become ingrained into them. They don't see what they see. They just basically are living. So you can actually do the photo comparison. So that was just something I wanted to share so that you can actually get someone to, one, clean up kitchens, stage properties a little bit better, and just get them to say, hey, maybe we need to put a coat of paint or maybe just remove 50% of the furniture. Those are little things that we can do. But let's go and have a look at a couple more photo comparisons. So looking at a bedroom. Now, this is something that I see so often. Are we selling a main bedroom or are we selling a king size bed? This is something that jumps out all the time because what are we taking a picture of? Well, I'm taking a picture of the bed. And I actually felt a bit embarrassed with this one because I took the picture and my photographer, he said to me, Stuart, what are you selling? And his question really sunk home because the picture that he took was this picture. This picture was of the room. You see, it shows the bed, it shows the cupboards, it shows the sliding door going out, top right-hand corner, it's got air conditioning, ceiling, it's got a fan. It tells more of a story. So when you're taking pictures, make sure that you're telling the story of the room, not trying to sell the bed. So that was something that was quite big. Then we move on to something which is bathrooms. And bathrooms are so challenging, especially when they are small. And this is really literally, I was standing at the door and we're looking right inside. Now, what do we do with this particular bathroom? Well, the first thing is when a room is very small, you need to declutter. You need to remove as much as possible, clean it up, because that took us probably about 5 minutes to go from that photo to that photo. Yes, the professional photographer had wide angle lenses, he had flashes, he had all those tools that just elevates it. But when you go through and you do these photo comparisons and explain, it's a great way to, one, get your seller to keep the house clean for when buyers come through. Two, to get your seller to look at certain elements that might need to be improved on without you saying it looks a little bit untidy or it's a bit dated. And three, it's these first impressions. When a buyer is looking at these pictures on the internet, they like the photos. And it's the photos that gets them through the front door. So make sure that the first tool that you have are those photo comparisons. Either have a professional photographer or you become the professional photographer. And that's going to be leading us into our next tool. So that when you're going forward, you're giving the best impression on that particular property. So many times agents have said to me, Stuart, I don't know why I'm not getting any inquiries. And when I look at the pictures, I'm going, I wouldn't want to look at that house. What can you do to make it appealing? Don't just take 5 minutes, mandate pictures, and out you go and get it listed. Take a little bit of time. So if you don't have the budget for a professional photographer, the second tool, as I mentioned, was to be the photographer. Now, to be the photographer doesn't mean just pick up your phone and taking pictures. There's a couple of little rules and regulations that you actually have. So you need to have a standard for each of your shots. So this particular standard is something that you can actually make notes of this when you're going through and taking pictures of the properties, because there's times where I've actually seen agents upload 40, 50 photos. Let me tell you, your buyers only look at the first 3 or 4 photos. So if your first 3 or 4 photos that is on the platforms are the worst photos out, you're missing out on your buyers. So you make sure your first 3 or 4 photos are the best, because based on that, they will actually put through that inquiry to set up a viewing. So let's have a look at this little checklist. And it's just a little short list of what you can actually do. So first one is 2 wide shot angles of each bedroom, the kitchen, and the living room. Okay, living rooms, lounge, dining rooms, etc. So have 2 wide angle shots of each of those. Sometimes you're just going from different angles so that you've got some recycling. Now, just bearing in mind, when you are uploading it, don't upload all of them, only upload one of them. And the reason for that is when we come to recycling of our photos, so every week we want to make it fresh, you can actually delete one of the bedroom and replace it with the other angle of the bedroom. It makes the listing look fresh and new each week. So you can actually upgrade it and change it. And I did that all the time, every week on a Thursday. So 2 wide angles, bedrooms, the kitchen, and the living room. That's all you really need to get that going. 1 photo of the bathroom, unless it is spacious and unique. You don't need 10 photos of the bathroom. A bathroom is a bathroom. Get it the angle right. You just want to show the quality of the tiles, the quality of the porcelain, the quality of the actual bathroom itself. You only need 1. And trust me, the bathroom is not going to sell it unless it's got something where it's a room on a room on a room with a jacuzzi and a sauna and everything built into it. Then it might need a few more photos. But just take those simple photos. The next is 1 to 3 photos of the backyard. So of that garden area, and especially if it's got some unique feature. So this would include things overlooking the pool to the house. Maybe they've got a LARPer entertainment area, or maybe they've got a kids play area, or showing the garden going into or overlooking the ocean or something of that nature. So you need about 1 to 3 shots of the backyard. So this is not something when you're arriving at the property, this is on the other side of the property, just so that you've got a bit of a variety on that side. Now, the last one is 1 to 2 shots of the front of the home. And this is the curb appeal. Okay, this is the money shot. This should be your first picture that you present on your portals. This is when they arrive at the house, they suddenly go, that's the property that we saw on the internet. Not, which property is it? Make sure that curb appeal is there. So 1 to 2 of the front, this is the money shot that gets them to look at pictures 2, 3, and 4. So make sure that you've got that money shot and put it in that sequence. Now, the way I've actually go through this when I'm uploading onto the actual website, I always say 3 to 4 primary shots. Well, we know what the first picture is going to be. It's going to be of the front of the house. The next, pick your next 3 best. Now, we know that it's the kitchens. We know that it's the lounge or the entertainment areas. Possibly it could be the pool area, and it could even be the main bedroom. You pick one of those to be your next set of pictures. Thereafter, if you're an agent that likes to do the flow and sequence from the front door and going through, then have your sequence. But those first 3 or 4 photos, keep them to the most specific, the money shots. So that gives you this bundle that really puts it together. Now, there are additional places in the actual house where we can take photos. And really, these are for reference. And you can add them as like the last pictures. And that's laundry rooms, garages, pantries, anything of that nature. You can take pictures as references if you require, and if the client actually asks for them. So I typically, when it ever comes to these extras, if I've uploaded, and I normally did between 12 and 16 photos, depending on how many bedrooms in the house, if there were only 12 pictures and I wanted to push it up a little bit, I would then add maybe a laundry or the pantry or something like that, but it's right at the end, not in the beginning or in the middle. I want to make sure that I give the best impression of the house. So that is the shot list that I suggest. Remember, you can always take it in your angle, but this gives you that little collection of photos so that you know what you're going forward with. Now, you would have noticed that when I was doing the photo comparisons, when I took it with my camera, or actually my mobile phone, the pictures from the professional photographer were wide. It just showed so much more. So when we actually look at it, you can actually see the before on this one. You can see it cuts off the left-hand side of the house, but you can add a wide angle lens to your mobile phone. Or if you've got a SLR type camera, you're looking at getting the wide angles so that you can cover more into it. So when you're looking at the property and taking those pictures, you just get more of it. Now, you could walk further back if you wanted to, and that can give you the wide angled approach. However, sometimes you are limited to space. So definitely make sure that when you're taking pictures, you are taking them with that wide angle. Now, when we start looking at coming inside the house, this is as an example. You can see on the left-hand side, this is a picture without a wide angle lens. Then on the right-hand side, same room, but with a wide angled lens. You can see more in the actual room. The first is generally what agents take. They're selling a bed, not a house. The second, they're actually selling the lifestyle of that room. You can see the size and everything, and it really makes it more appealing. So make sure that when you are taking photos, that you have that wide angle. It can be an adapter that you can clap onto your actual mobile phone, or if you've got those digital SLRs, make sure that you've got that wide angled lens so that you can do all the covering on that. Now, I want to share with you a couple of shooting tips, because we actually just go in there as real estate agents. We're not photographers. We just walk in there and we go click, 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 click. And then we walk out. And then when we look at those pictures afterwards, we kind of go, they're like kind of okay. Well, here's a couple of shooting tips that will give you a little bit of guidance. Now, the first one, you got to choose the right time of the day. So if you find that you're going into a property that's either north or south facing, and you're actually going in the morning, what you're going to find is the light is going to be coming in from the one angle, which means it could be giving you shadows. You can see there might be trees, and it's making the rooms rather dark. But later in the day, the sun that comes through is lightening it up a bit. So have a look at the time of the day of when you're going through. Sometimes taking the picture at midday, at noon, sometimes becomes a great time because there's no shadows. So you got to have a look at the time of the day that you're going to take it. Now, the great thing is when you're actually going through for mandates, you can have conversations with your seller and say, hey, so how's it in the morning? You know, the sun coming through. Can you see anything? What does it look like in the garden in the late afternoon? What does it look like? Shadow. You can ask these particular questions to find that right time of the day. The second is when you are taking pictures, make sure that you open the windows, you open blinds, curtains. If they've got that nice little frilly lace curtain, remove it. What happens is when you take a picture, one, the curtains, the blinds, and those lacy frills, they actually make the room look smaller, also darker. So by removing it, it gives more natural light into the actual rooms. And when you open the windows, it also gives you that sense of depth if it's actually included, if it's possible. So make sure all those lights and blinds are open to make the rooms as light as naturally possible. The next is turn on every light. If they've got a bedside lamp, turn it on. Ceiling fan with a light, turn it on. Turn the fan off, but turn the light on. Turn lights on. Don't take pictures when it's in the dark. I actually had a box of globes. These were all cool white globes that I used to go around. If bedside lamps were warm, I would replace them because it made it lighter. And when it made it lighter, when I took those pictures, it just made the room look bigger. When you put the wall bulbs in, only in big rooms, because that just gives you a bit of warmth in the actual room. But the actual warm lights will make the room feel a little bit smaller. So cool white lights is always the way to go. And now with the new LED lights that people are replacing, most of them are cool white. So it gives you that nice brightness in all of your rooms. When you are going into an area and there is low light, what typically happens is your actual camera will actually keep that little frame or that lens open for longer and basically try and bring in as much light to get the picture. If you're holding in your hand, the picture becomes blurry. So if you're going into an environment where it is a little bit on the low light, you need to have a tripod. So here's my little handy hint. When you're going into a property and you don't have a tripod and you're using your phone, go and get their broom. Yep, their broom. You turn their broom upside down so the bristles are facing upwards. You lie your phone on the edge of the actual broom. You hold it there so that it gives you that stance of holding it as still as possible, and then you can take your pictures. The great thing is all your pictures will be at the same height, but it also helps to give you some stability. So if you do go into a property and it is a little bit on the dark side and there's very low light, go and grab their broom. It is the funniest thing, but it's a great tip. I've used it so many times to go and take a picture. So you've actually got to rent a tripod at probably most of your clients' properties. So the next one, well, we've spoken about it. Get that wide angled lens. So important to have that wide angled lens so that you can get more information about that particular property as possible. Now, a couple of these other little tips that I have. Yep, use a flash if you can. Just be cautious with those flashes, because what happens is when the flash goes off, it does reflect back, which means that if there's anything reflective that is, say, a meter away, what's going to happen? The back end of the photo is going to become quite dark. So that's why you'll see a lot of the professional photographers, when they're using flashes, they bounce it off the ceiling. The ceiling is white. It hits the ceiling, it bounces back down, and they get those nice pictures. They don't shoot it straight into the actual room itself. So if you're using a flash, just be cautious of that. The next, find these creative shooting angles. So you'll find that it's not just walk into the room and take a picture. You must walk into the room and the room must tell you a story, and there's your picture. Some creative shots that we've done in the past is we've had a pool that actually had a water fountain, and we actually got the camera behind the water fountain. So half, about a third to half of the photo actually had the water coming down, and the rest was over the pool, and it actually had the house. Absolutely amazing. When the garden, if you've got one of these beautiful roses that just pops up, you just have it just coming into the actual screen. So you be a little bit creative. It just takes your images to the next level. You can also use props. Props such as scatter cushions, vases with fake flowers if you want to, staging items. You can actually have these props which just elevate it. Maybe you even carry in your car a couple of little extra things that when you're going there, you can take out their items, put in some of your items, and it's basically staging. So you can actually do that. And I've done it a few times, especially when I know a property where my clients, and I hope they never get to watch this, they just didn't have taste. So I had to actually add a little bit of flavor to the property, which actually just stepped it up. And then shoot level to the actual ground. What we mean by that is when you're taking your pictures, don't aim the camera down or don't aim the camera up. Your camera must be level to the ground, which means that you need to shoot at roughly 1.5 meters above the ground. Why? Well, the ceiling is 3 meters and the camera will sit roughly halfway. So this just gives you a rule of thumb. Get that camera at about 1.5 meters and make sure that it's level. As soon as you shoot down or up, your picture will become in a bit of a perspective type of way. You'll find that the walls will either curl in or they'll seem to tilt out. You want to make sure that everything is absolutely vertical. So there are just a couple of shooting tips. I know there's a lot to take in. I know that you're not a professional photographer, but I just wanted to share some things from my experience to help you to take those elevated photos. Now, I want to touch on something which is what we call this high definition photography. And what is high definition photography? Well, if you look at these two images, the one on the left, great quality picture, lovely room. But the one on the right, you can see through the sliding doors. It gives you a deeper perspective. How do we do that? Well, that is with HDR photography. You see, HDR, which is high definition photography, will actually take multiple photos and be able to give you that look. Because when we look at the one on the left, the actual sliding door is flared out because of the light outside. We can't really see, but the one on the right just looks so smooth. So how do we actually do that? Well, some of your cameras will actually have this feature built into it. It will take between 3 to 5 photos. Now, in order to do this, you will need a tripod, not a broom. Please, no brooms. Here you need to have a proper tripod, because remember, it's going to take 3 to 5 photos consecutively, and you can't make any adjustments. So 3 to 5 photos, and each one will be at a different exposure. So it'll actually go from overexposed, where it's all blown and white, to exposed, where it's all dark and dingy. And then what happens is, through the actual process, it actually combines all of them. Now, I know a lot of you are going, hey, but I've got programs that can actually do all of that. Yes, and those programs do work to a degree. They will give you, however, the output may look a little bit grainy. Grainy is like where it's got lots of little dots all over it. This method gives you the ultra clean and crisp, because each photo is clean and crisp at that particular exposure. Now, I mentioned there is no movement. So tripods are absolutely essential. And generally, it's an automatic process. Click and the camera will go click, click, click. And then it'll start to combine them either post or pre in its production site. So either does in the camera or does on the computer, but you can actually get those particular photos. So let's have a look at that original one, what it actually looked like. So if you look at the very first, that was +2 on its exposure. You can see the outside is totally blown out. As we're starting to go through, you can see it starts getting darker. But when you look at the last one, which is 1 over on exposure, at 1 f-stop, you can actually see right through, and you can see outside nicely. So ultimately, the high definition starts to combine those elements together so that you get the best photo. And this is what all our professional photographers are doing. When you're seeing them set up on a tripod and their little camera's going, and you're wondering, well, what's it doing? That's exactly what it's doing. And then they have a quick look at it, make sure everything is good, and then they're off to the next room. So those HDR, make sure that you're actually using them, because it will take that photo right up to the next level. Now, I'm going to share with you a couple of apps that you can use on your phone. Now, these apps may be outdated. They might be upgraded. Remember, at the time of me actually creating this, they were valid. So if you're watching this sometime in the future, that app might be upgraded. So we've got 2 apps that I can share with you. There's one that's called Pro HDRX for the Apple phones, and for the Android phones, we've got HDR camera. So both do those HDR photos. If you are using your actual phone, just make sure that you get yourself a little tripod that can hold your camera, put it at 1.5 meters, make sure that it's level to the actual ground, set it up and click it away. Some of these apps are free, some of these apps you pay for as you're going through. Are there more apps? Absolutely. Are there better apps? Absolutely. Remember, we're living in a technology era where every single day a new app is released and every app steps up above the other one. I just wanted to give you that you can do it on your phone, and there's just a couple of apps that you can do. And like always, I have this script that I have with my sellers. That's why, Mr. Seller, I consider every detail when I'm marketing your home to get you the maximum price for your home. Simple little script. And they say, why do you do all of this work? This is the reason why I do all of this work. I want to get the maximum. I want to get those buyers through the actual property. So that was professional photography, taking it down to a level that is definitely part of your presentation. And this is something that you really want to make sure that you totally get yourself immersed in. I want every single one of you to make sure that when you step out, you actually give the best presentation to your particular sellers, and making sure that when they actually look at those photos that you're actually doing, they go, wow, that is absolutely amazing. So I want to just share with you what's coming up next. And what's coming up next is that professional presentation. In our next session, what I'm going to be covering and I'm going to be sharing with you is two things. The first, my 8-week digital marketing plan. Basically, it is a step-by-step process to help you through your marketing plan. When you sit down and present this to your sellers, promise you now, it's got a 125-point checklist, which is like having your car serviced. You tick everything off. It's got when and what and everything that you're going to do in week 1 right through to week 8. I'm going to be sharing that with you so that you know what the marketing plan is. And then the bonus is the professional presentation. This is a PowerPoint presentation that you will be able to download, you'll be able to customize, and you'll be able to put your own content professionally printed, have it bound, and have it laminated. So when you're sitting in front of your sellers, it takes your business, it takes your game to the whole new level. This is something that I use, and when my sellers look at this, they actually just forget about everybody else and they start focusing on me. Why? Because I'm giving them a professional presentation. So don't miss out on the session that's coming up next week. And I'm looking forward to meeting and doing all of that presentations with all of you next week.